China is hitting the United States for revoking student visas. It's calling the decision political persecution and racial discrimination. And what China's doing, what the US has done is 1,000 student visas have been revoked since June. The reason is the US believes China and the students and researchers have ties to the Chinese military. All at the same time as we are now looking at exactly where do we stand in this trade deal. Remember, we had phase 1 of the deal, which was meant to lead to phase 2 of the China-US trade talks. Well, phase 1 appears to be falling short. Phase 2 is nowhere in sight. COVID, obviously, is partly to blame. Michael Froman is with me. He was the US trade representative, the USTR, in Barack Obama. He's now the vice chairman at Microsoft. Forgive me, I'm not sure that's a promotion or otherwise. At MasterCard. I was moving you industries, Michael, but you are with MasterCard. You are the vice chair there. Look, let's just talk about relations with China and the US. Phase 1 was a lot of hullabaloo and ballyhoo. Phase 2 hasn't happened. It's not likely to.
Well, phase 1 was really an agreement for them to buy, for China to buy 200 billion more of our goods over the next 2 years than they did in the past. And in fact, it's far below what they have in the past. And the trade deficit, which we long debated whether that was the right measure of a bilateral relationship, but it was President Trump's measure. The trade deficit is actually larger now than it has ever been with China and globally. So now some of that is, of course, because of COVID, as you said, but it's also an indication that we haven't yet dealt with the big structural issues, which were pushed off to phase 2. And that's what really needs to be focused on going forward.
Right. Okay. Now, the deals that have been done, well, there's the South Korean trade agreement, the Japanese one, there's the USMCA, and there is a whole raft. We forget this, Michael, but there is a whole raft of tariffs, both against the EU, with more to come on cars potentially and French, and against China. Do you see any shift? Do you see there's been a shift in trade relations?
Well, I think this administration has certainly been more willing to use tariffs outside of the WTO system to get the attention of our trading partners. But Richard, you rightfully point out, we have tariffs on about $350 billion of Chinese exports to the United States. We have a phase 1 trade deal, and our trading relationship hasn't fundamentally changed over the course of the last 3.5 years there. And there's more work to be done, particularly on those structural issues. With the EU as well, we've got tariffs in place and more tariffs threatened, and we haven't really been able to break through the longstanding trade issues that we have with them either.
I need to talk to you, just turning the wheel slightly, well, not slightly, completely. This business by the UK, in terms of trying to change the withdrawal agreement or giving themselves powers to go against the withdrawal agreement. The US is already sort of saber-rattled. As a seasoned, experienced trade negotiator, do you look at this in horror of what the UK is doing, or as, come on, it's to be expected in high-level negotiations?
Look, I think there's probably a fair degree of gamesmanship between London and Brussels at the moment. But at this point, given what's going on in the global economy, now more than ever, I would think people would want to see stability and predictability in terms of where the relationship is going. And as the UK tries to develop its own independent trading relationships with other countries like the United States, it's got to be able to sort out its relationship with the EU before it can do so. It's hard to negotiate a trade agreement with the UK until we know whether the UK is going to follow Brussels in all of its policies and its regulations, or whether it's going to exercise a degree of autonomy and sovereignty and potentially agree with the United States or others on a different course of action.
But if you had been USTR still, and you'd seen what they'd done, and you'd heard all the smoke and noise around it, would you be quietly thinking, oh, this is just one of those things? Or would you be girding your loins for battle?
it's getting to be quite late in the calendar to be playing gamesmanship. So again, I can't put myself in the shoes of those in London making these decisions fully. But I would think it's in everybody's interest that they create stability and predictability with their relationship with the EU, and then the relationship with the rest of the world, particularly at this point in the global economy.
Right, finally, WTO. The WTO, we've been talking to all the various candidates who are up for the job. Do you have a preferred candidate? Do you have somebody you think should get the job?
I think there are a lot of very good candidates, and I think it's a critical time for the global trading system, for the organization, and I think it's going to be important that the next Director General be able to work well with the United States, with China and the other major trading partners, and to really help reform the WTO so that it becomes a more viable part of the global trading system.
You are a diplomat, ambassador, which is, I suppose, that's why you've got ambassador before your name. A true diplomat. We were talking to all the candidates. Michael, it is good to see you, ambassador. I appreciate it. Thank you.